For almost 2,000 years, a hidden gospel in Ethiopia preserved a secret the church insisted could never exist. When scholars finally gained access to it, they encountered a single sentence, one line powerful enough to challenge everything we thought we knew about Jesus. How could something so explosive remain concealed for centuries? And why would the most powerful religious institution in history be so afraid of it? Stay with us, because this is a revelation few ever imagined. The story begins at Lake Tana. In recent years, researchers from across the world have been quietly traveling to Debre Mariam Monastery in Ethiopia. They weren't drawn by tourism or scenery, but by a rumor passed in hushed tones among Ethiopian scholars. It spoke of a hidden gospel, older than many accepted Christian texts, protected by monks who rarely speak of the manuscripts in their care. For nearly 2 millennia, the monks of this monastery have safeguarded writings no outsider was allowed to touch. Some of these texts vanished everywhere else in the world. Others survived only because Ethiopia remained beyond the full reach of European empires and the church councils that once decided which writings were acceptable and which were considered dangerous. Interest in ancient Christian texts has surged in recent decades as discoveries from deserts, caves, and forgotten libraries continue to reshape our understanding of early Christianity. These findings reveal that the earliest followers of Jesus held a wide range of beliefs, far more diverse than most people were ever taught. This makes Ethiopia uniquely important. It became a refuge for texts that would have been erased elsewhere. The monks of Debre Mariam have always understood the weight of this responsibility. For centuries, they shared their manuscripts only with trusted guardians within their own tradition. To them, these writings were not historical artifacts, they were sacred inheritances. When researchers finally arrived on the island, they immediately felt the tension of entering a world untouched by modern urgency. Life there moves slowly, shaped by prayer, silence, and preservation. Nothing changes without deep reflection. The scholars' request to view the rumored gospel did not receive an immediate response. It was clear that what the monks protected was more than ink on parchment. It was part of their spiritual identity. So what made this gospel so different? The earliest hints came from scattered references in Ethiopian records. These spoke of a text that described events in Jesus' life in a way the early church declared impossible. According to the Whispers, a single sentence carried an idea so unacceptable that church authorities centuries ago ordered it banned from being copied. That idea survived in Ethiopia because the region never fully submitted to the theological editing that shaped Western Christianity. For years, scholars dismissed the story entirely. It sounded more like legend than history. Many assumed that if such a manuscript ever existed, it had been destroyed long ago. Yet the rumors refused to die. A gospel hidden on an island in Lake Tana. One sentence that challenged the story known across the world. A text guarded by monks who believe that truth is not something to be traded or revealed lightly. And when the monks finally agreed to open their collection, they did not lead the researchers into a grand archive or ornate library. Instead, they guided them into a small, cool room, quiet, unassuming, and holding a secret that had waited centuries to be seen. The room itself was built of stone. There were no modern shelves or equipment, only wooden chests, stacks of manuscripts wrapped carefully in cloth, and the faint scent of ancient parchment carrying the weight of centuries. Many of the manuscripts were familiar texts, written in Ge'ez, Ethiopia's ancient liturgical language. Some were richly illustrated, their colors still alive despite their age. Others were plain, their pages worn thin by generations of careful hands. Among them sat the hidden gospel. It was unmarked and almost easy to miss. Its cover was faded, its pages fragile, yet its presence felt unmistakably significant. The monks handled it with a reverence that made one thing clear. This was not a book opened casually or without intention. As the researchers gently unfolded its first pages, they realized they were looking at a document untouched by outside hands for longer than most nations have existed. The manuscript showed clear signs of age, yet it had been preserved well enough to read. The handwriting was steady and deliberate, written by someone who believed deeply in every word. The language matched other early Ethiopian Christian writings, pointing to a time when traditions were still forming, before doctrine hardened and strict control spread across regions. At first glance, the gospel felt familiar. It spoke of teachings, journeys, and moments known from Christian history. But something was different. The structure did not follow the expected pattern. The tone carried a depth that hinted at interpretations long forgotten. Throughout the opening pages, subtle clues appeared. Phrases, transitions, descriptions that suggested this manuscript held something unusual, something deliberately hidden. The researchers did not yet know what the forbidden sentence was. They only sensed it waiting ahead, like a shadow moving just beyond the story. The gospel did not reveal its secret quickly. It demanded patience, slow page turning, and an openness to a very different vision of early faith. What had once been dismissed as rumor was now undeniable. The manuscript was real. Its message remained intact, and somewhere within its fragile pages rested a sentence the church once declared impossible, one capable of reshaping a story the world believed it already understood. This was the gospel no one believed still existed. Long before modern scholars ever laid eyes on the manuscript from Lake Tana, the story of its disappearance had already begun. To understand how this gospel vanished from the wider world, we must return to a time when Christianity was young, scattered, and far less organized than it is today. In the centuries following the life of Jesus, many communities recorded their own memories, teachings, and interpretations. Some wrote in Greek, others in Aramaic, Coptic, Syriac, or local languages shaped by culture and geography. There was no single book that defined belief. Instead, there were many voices, all trying to understand the same story. Over time, leaders began debating which writings should be accepted and which should be rejected. These debates shaped the foundations of doctrine. The decisions were not based solely on history or faith. Politics, power, and the desire for unity played major roles. Some texts were embraced, others were dismissed as unreliable, dangerous, or too different from the emerging standard. Many were forgotten. Others were deliberately destroyed by leaders who feared they might confuse believers. Ethiopia followed a different path. Christianity took root there early, becoming firmly established by the 4th century. Because Ethiopian Christianity developed far from European councils and Roman political struggles, it preserved manuscripts that disappeared elsewhere. Monasteries became safe havens for texts that might have been erased in regions shaped by imperial control and theological conflict. This distance allowed Ethiopia to become a guardian of forgotten writings, including gospels that never entered the familiar biblical collection. Today, scholars often describe Ethiopia as a living library of early Christianity, not because everything remained unchanged, but because it preserved ideas the rest of the world stopped copying. When texts vanished from Europe or the Middle East, they sometimes continued quietly in highland churches or island monasteries. The gospel found at Lake Tana belongs to this tradition. Its existence survived only through faint traces, brief mentions in Ethiopian commentaries, and rare references by scholars who believed it once circulated among small early communities. Outside Ethiopia, there were no surviving copies, no fragments, no confirmed translations. For years, Western scholars doubted it ever existed at all. They assumed the references were symbolic or mistaken. But for Ethiopian monks, the gospel was never a symbol. It was a memory, passed carefully from generation to generation. They believed the text contained a teaching too controversial to spread openly. They understood that early Christian history was far more complex than modern retellings suggest. Some writings were preserved not because they were safe, but because they mattered. The disappearance of this gospel from the wider world can be traced to early church councils in Europe. As leaders worked to unify belief, anything that challenged the developing narrative was set aside. A sentence like the one preserved in the Lake Tana manuscript, one that questioned a central idea, would have been seen as a threat. Such a gospel would have been labeled heretical, quietly excluded, and eventually forgotten. Yet while Europe narrowed its collection of acceptable texts, Ethiopia preserved a broader memory. The monks were not trying. That is how a gospel erased from the rest of the world survived in Ethiopia. Not by accident, but by devotion. Not because it fit accepted ideas, but because the monks believed all stories deserved to be remembered, even the ones others tried to silence. And now, with the gospel revealed once more, The world is forced to reconsider what early Christianity truly looked like and what it chose to hide. Opening the manuscript, the moment the manuscript was set down on the low wooden table, the atmosphere in the room subtly changed. Nothing dramatic happened, no sound, no sudden movement, just a quiet shift, the kind that occurs when something hidden for centuries finally comes into view. The monks stood near the doorway, calm and observant. Their presence was a silent reminder that this was more than an old book. It was a piece of living spiritual heritage, carried through nearly 2,000 years without ever leaving their protection. At first glance, the manuscript appeared ordinary. Its cover was made of aged leather, darkened by time and the touch of countless hands. The page edges were uneven, gently curled from age and humidity. Yet these signs of wear did not suggest neglect. They told the story of a long life, one shaped by careful preservation. When the researchers opened the first page, they were greeted by the familiar sight of Ge'ez script. This ancient Ethiopian language has been used in sacred writings for centuries, and its lettering carries a quiet elegance, simple, deliberate, and solemn. Though the ink had faded in places, the words remained clear. Long ago, the scribe had written with great care. Every line felt intentional, as if the writer understood that these words might one day matter far beyond their own time and place. The opening sections revealed nothing immediately unusual. The stories felt familiar, echoing accounts found in known Gospels. Teachings, journeys, and recognizable moments appeared much as they did elsewhere. But the tone felt different. It was more reflective, more inward-looking. Rather than focusing only on events, the text seemed intent on exploring their deeper meaning, as though the reader was being invited not just to learn what happened, but to understand why it mattered. As the pages turned, the differences became clearer. Certain events were described with details found nowhere else. Some moments were emphasized in ways that hinted at a broader spiritual message. The structure felt personal and almost meditative, as if the gospel had been written for a small community searching for understanding, not for public teaching or widespread authority. The researchers moved slowly, carefully supporting each fragile page. Every turn felt like stepping deeper into a forgotten world, one shaped by early believers whose ideas never became part of the mainstream tradition. This was not simply another version of a known gospel. It was a glimpse into a form of early Christianity that had been overshadowed by time, politics, and theological decisions made long after the events themselves. Signs of great age appeared throughout the manuscript. The ink matched compositions commonly used in late antiquity. The handwriting closely resembled other early Ethiopian texts from the first centuries of Christian history. Even the parchment itself pointed to a period when Ethiopian scribes were producing some of their earliest sacred works. Everything suggested the manuscript was far older than most surviving Christian writings, but its value did not lie in age alone. What made it remarkable was the sense that it remained untouched, unshaped by centuries of editing and reinterpretation. Unlike many texts that passed through countless hands, this one appeared to have stayed in a single place for nearly 2,000 years. That isolation preserved not only its words, but its original intention. Still, the full story had yet to emerge. Even in the early pages, it was clear that something deeper lay ahead. The phrasing hinted at a revelation, something the writer was carefully building toward. The researchers could feel it approaching, even if they could not yet see it. The gospel did not rush its message. It unfolded slowly, layer by layer, moving from familiar ground into unknown territory. And within that transition was the faint outline of the impossible sentence, the one early church leaders once insisted could not exist. With each page, the sense grew stronger that what came next would change everything they thought they understood. The manuscript seemed ready, at last, to speak a truth history had tried and failed to silence, the sentence the church declared impossible. Page by page, the manuscript moved closer to the moment that had survived only in whispers for centuries. The earlier sections felt like preparation, blending familiar teachings with unfamiliar reflections. The writing gradually became more symbolic, more inward-looking, as if the author were guiding the reader carefully toward a truth that could not be revealed all at once. Nothing felt hurried. Every line served a purpose. Then, near the center of the gospel, the rhythm changed again. The sentences slowed, the pacing became deliberate, almost cautious. It was clear the writer understood the weight of what was about to be written. There, in the heart of the manuscript, on a page more worn than the others, the sentence appeared. It was brief. Its wording was firm, standing apart from the lines above and below it. Though the ink had faded with time, the meaning remained unmistakable, as if the writer expected these words to be read far in the future by those willing to ask difficult questions. The sentence describes something the early church had long insisted could not exist. It spoke of a moment when Jesus expressed fear, uncertainty, and a desire to step back from a path that felt too heavy for any human to bear. This was not poetic metaphor or symbolic hesitation. It was a direct admission of human vulnerability. According to this gospel, Jesus did not struggle only with physical suffering. He wrestled with the emotional and spiritual weight of his mission in a way no accepted text had ever openly described. To modern readers, this might seem like a deeply human detail. But to church leaders shaping doctrine in late antiquity, it posed a serious problem. If Jesus experienced doubt and uncertainty so openly, then long-standing theological arguments about perfection, absolute certainty, and divine separation from human weakness would begin to unravel. The sentence blurred the boundary between the divine and the human in a way early councils refused to accept. Church authorities feared that such a portrayal could unsettle believers, invite debate, and open the door to interpretations beyond their control. As a result, writings that emphasized too much humanity, vulnerability, or inner conflict were often rejected. Some were banned from being copied. Others were destroyed altogether. This gospel went further than simply suggesting that Jesus was human. It placed that humanity at the very center of its message. Strength, it implied, was not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. For early leaders working to present a unified, unwavering image of faith, this idea was dangerous. What made the sentence even more striking was the intention behind it. The writer clearly believed this moment of vulnerability carried profound spiritual meaning. It was not a weakness to be hidden, but a lesson to be understood. Doubt did not erase purpose. Fear did not diminish meaning. True spiritual clarity required honesty about human struggle, not denial of it. This perspective stood in direct opposition to the path early church doctrine eventually took. Authority, consistency, and certainty became priorities. Anything that challenged them was pushed aside. The sentence preserved in the Lake Tana Gospel challenged all three, and that is why the Gospel vanished from wider history. It was not lost by chance. It was deliberately set aside, quietly excluded from accepted tradition, and allowed to disappear everywhere except in places untouched by external control. Here, within the walls of an Ethiopian monastery, the impossible sentence survived, unchanged, unedited, and waiting. Its survival matters not only for what the sentence says, but for what it represents. It points to a form of early Christian belief that embraced complexity instead of resisting it, a tradition willing to accept uncertainty as part of spiritual growth. The sentence does not rewrite history, but it expands it. It reminds us that early Christianity was never a single unified story. It was many stories, shaped by real human experience. Some accepted, some silenced, and some preserved only because a distant monastery refused to let its truth disappear. In the stillness of that stone room, with the manuscript open to a page so many had tried to erase, the weight of the discovery became clear. The sentence had endured everything history had thrown at it. And now, after nearly 2,000 years, it was ready to be heard again. The battle to suppress it. The story of this gospel does not end with its writing. In many ways, that is where the struggle truly began. Almost as soon as Christianity began organizing itself across the Mediterranean world, church leaders in Rome, Alexandria, and Constantinople worked to define what could be accepted as truth. They decided which writings strengthened faith and which ones threatened it. Texts that acknowledged doubt, vulnerability, or deep human complexity in Jesus were seen as dangerous. They were studied, debated, and then often quietly removed from circulation. The story of suppression reveals more than historical conflict. It shows the power of preservation. It demonstrates that even in the face of organized authority, ideas labeled too dangerous can survive when protected by those who value truth above obedience. The Lake Tana Gospel does not exist simply to challenge doctrine. It exists to remind us that history is never a single voice, that faith is not a monolith, and that even ideas pushed to the margins can echo across centuries. Now, after generations of silent protection, the sentence the church once declared impossible stands ready to be read. Its survival is a testament to courage, devotion, and the determination to protect a story many wanted forgotten. The struggle may have been quiet, but its outcome is unmistakable. The gospel endured, waiting to reshape how we understand the early world. What this means today. The discovery of the Lake Tana gospel is more than an academic event. It is a reminder that history is rarely as simple as it appears, that truth often survives far from centers of power, and that ideas can endure even when the world tries to bury them. Scholars, theologians, and everyday readers are only beginning to grasp the implications of a sentence once declared impossible. It forces a reconsideration of early Christianity, its diversity, its debates, and the ways beliefs are shaped, preserved, and remembered. For centuries, dominant narratives presented Christianity as fixed and uniform. Texts outside the accepted canon were dismissed as unreliable or dangerous. This gospel challenges that assumption. It reveals early Christianity as a tapestry of voices, each exploring the human and divine in different ways. Some voices were amplified, others were silenced, and some, like this one, survived only in secrecy. Researchers studying the manuscript are struck not only by the forbidden sentence, but by the broader spirit of the text. It emphasizes the humanity of Jesus in ways modern readers can understand. Struggle, doubt, and fear are treated not as weaknesses, but as lessons. Faith, the gospel suggests, is deepened through honesty, not denial. These ideas extend beyond scholarship. They invite faith communities to reflect on how doctrine has been shaped over time and whether fear of contradiction has sometimes obscured valuable insight. For many readers, the gospel offers permission to acknowledge questions, uncertainty, and inner struggle as part of spiritual life. Historians, too, are learning from this discovery. The manuscript highlights how fragile knowledge can be and how easily entire perspectives can vanish when authority intervenes. It reminds us that surviving texts represent only a fraction of what once existed. For every preserved manuscript, countless others may have been lost. The gospel also challenges assumptions about authority itself. The church once claimed certain ideas were impossible. This manuscript proves those ideas existed and mattered deeply to some of the earliest followers of Jesus. Authority can shape acceptance, but it cannot erase what is remembered and protected by devoted individuals. For readers outside academic or religious circles, the lesson is simple and human. The gospel encourages curiosity, patience, and respect for knowledge that survives against the odds. It affirms the value of questioning, of exploring the unfamiliar, and of seeking understanding beyond what is comfortable. It stands as proof that truth can exist in unexpected places, and that even quiet acts of preservation can shape the future in ways no one could have predicted. And as the manuscript continues to be studied, its story is far from over. The Lake Tana Gospel continues to shape conversations about history, faith, and the human experience. Every page opens a window into a world long lost, yet intimately connected to the present. The sentence once declared impossible is no longer hidden. It reminds us that doubt and struggle are part of faith, that history is complex, and that survival comes through dedication, not convenience. Nearly 2,000 years old, this gospel proves that the past is never truly gone. It waits quietly in the spaces where preservation and devotion meet, ready to teach those willing to look beyond accepted narratives. Its existence challenges assumptions, invites reflection, and reminds us that some truths, even those once deemed impossible, endure. Ultimately, the discovery is more than a manuscript. It is a testament to human courage, devotion, and the power of memory. It celebrates voices that history tried to silence, showing how they can re-emerge in surprising ways. The survival of this gospel is a quiet triumph, a bridge between past and present, and a call to listen closely to stories that have been waiting in the shadows, ready to transform how we see the world. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and don't forget to click on the next video recommended on your screen.